You're listening to the Oneofus.net podcast network. Come together, it can be difficult. There can be a lot of culture clash between those cultures, and I think sometimes it's almost impossible to get past. I think we'll never see that more clearly than the French science fiction and American sensibilities, like with this movie, Valerian and the something planets.
And oh boy,
City
wow,
of 1,000 planets.
So many guys, right? Wow.
Wow. Yeah, we are reviewing the latest film, directed and written by Luc Besson. He didn't even have the excuse this time to say, well, I was 5 years old when I wrote this story.
Yeah. But he read it when he was 5 years old.
That's right. There you go. That's something. I'm Chris.
I'm Marco.
Joe.
Scott,
making his first Highly Suspect Reviews appearance. Coming over from our world of Twin Peaks and television, moving into movies.
Ooh.
And getting ready to get dogpiled on. Anyway.
Yeah, I don't doubt it.
Like, obviously everybody seeing this trailer went, it's The Fifth Element. And if you hated The Fifth Element, you said, I'm not going to go see that. Well, and if you're one of those people like me and you loved it, you were like, oh, I can't wait. I hope it's like The Fifth Element.
Well, I didn't want it to be like The Fifth Element, but I did want that kind of unique, never before seen world with a bunch of interesting characters going off on some madcap adventure. And even though it may be ludicrous at times, it's moving so quick, you don't have time to realize just how silly it all is. This movie, unfortunately, does not meet that low bar.
Yeah, at a certain point in time, you think, I've seen it all before. And then as I was watching this movie, I realized, oh, shit, I have. Well, and it's all in this one goddamn movie.
And maybe that's not even fair, because if you think about it, I mean, obviously this is based on an older property. This was... The original Valerian came out, I believe, in 1967, 1968.
Yes,
this 50-year-old property, and I think it kept going until like 2010. I think there was a TV animated series.
It's going again.
It's a beloved property, and it's one of those things by the French. But the thing is,
to be clear,
well, the thing is, having read a few of these. Trying anyway. I did pick up a few copies, but they're in French, so I can't judge it. Okay,
it's still hard to get through.
Yeah, but you could barely read. Everybody knows that about you. But the thing is, I could get into it because I have a soft spot for things like heavy metal and the works of Mobius and so forth. And the reason this feels so derivative is because over the years, so many people have ripped off Valerian, even Besson. I mean, on Fifth Element, he hired one of Mobius and the illustrator of, and I'm going to butcher the poor man's name, but Jean-Claude Mézières. If you look at some of those Valerian comic books, you can see exactly the frames that Besson has chosen to bring to life, and they're brought to life beautifully.
We've definitely seen a lot of stuff from these comic books borrowed by other people.
So by the time we get it, it feels familiar.
Yeah, but that's
and
not
it's not its fault.
That's not nearly it, though. I mean, we're talking about the treatment of whatever story there may have been. Just totally got the Hollywood romantic shit canning as far as cinematography goes. You've seen each and every one of those sequences before, and even down to like, oh hey, this is in the far future and we like that old timey shit music, so let's pop on some brand new Rihanna hits. Like it's all.
Were they actually Rihanna songs?
Oh yeah.
No. Well, see, I don't know any Rihanna songs.
And 500 years in the future,
I caught Bob Dylan and the Bee Gees.
Yeah, or at least Bee Gees samples anyway. But okay, so the story as it stands. Just see The Phantom Menace. Same thing. No, wait. Okay, sorry. It's Dane DeHaan plays Valerian. Cara Delevigne. I think it's just Delevigne.
Cara Delevigne
plays Laureline, and they are, believe it or not, supposed to be super experienced, space agents. Marines.
Part of the spatial temporal.
When he was 7, he was a super agent. That's why
right.
At 16 he's got 9 years of experience.
Yeah, they both. I mean, they're obviously. I think they're both like almost 30, but they both look like they're 16. But with the eyebrows of like the dad from American Pie. Anyway, Eugene Levy.
I was going to say Eugene Levy.
Yeah, they both got Eugene Levy eyebrows getting started there.
Well, yeah, the girl is eyebrows grande, and the boy is eyebrows chiquito.
Yeah, sure. Anyway, so we see the little intro of the film, basically the planet Avatar if it was on a beach. And a bunch of things burst through the clouds and causes the apocalypse, and only a handful survive. And then, we're like, okay, so what was that? And all we know is Dane DeHaan is constantly sexually harassing Cara Delevigne, but kind of saying, no, but I don't want to just fuck you, I want to marry you. And she's like, yeah, you need to stop this.
Well, apropos of nothing, it was just like, you're not going to fuck me, how about I marry you?
See, which is an odd thing, because I would have expected this to be the opportunity for them to do a kind of origin story. Here, it's established that they've been working together for a very long time.
I don't mind that.
No, I wouldn't
The actors
mind
are too young.
They're too young. Yeah. I wouldn't have minded if this had been an origin story and it's how they got together. In fact, apparently in the original comic, Laureline was like some 11th century French girl in medieval times.
There's
and
a lot of time
he just picked her up and she just became his companion.
Yeah, it was very
Doctor Who, exactly.
Yeah, but here, they end up on a mission from the space federal government thing, because the City of 1,000 Planets started as the International Space Station on Earth, and then we made first contact, and then we made second contact, and then we made 10 billionth contact.
Which is a kind of a really cool idea.
Yeah, it kept growing and growing and growing, and finally they're like, you need to get out of here, you're causing trouble with Earth and the orbits and shit, so go out into space and be your own thing. And now it's gotten to the point where it's just a huge,
it's its own planet. It's an artificial planet.
Of all these different races that have built their own areas onto it and interact with each other.
And they have managed to actually live in harmony, which is kind of shocking to everybody, because you think, oh, that never happens. But as we find out, there is a dark secret at the heart of this still.
Held together because everybody drinks a goddamn Coke.
Yeah. Yeah, if I could buy the universe a Coke.
And then we did.
And then we built this giant space
And apparently
station.
it crippled us financially.
Yeah, and one of the aliens is like, I'm allergic to sugar. Fuck off, you can't be here. Clive Owen somehow got elected to be president of this entire Federation of Planets.
No. Herbie Hancock.
Herbie Hancock is the man in charge of the agency.
He's the defense minister, but Clive Owen, they even said he was the guy he said, I was the elected president of the Federation. He said that at one point when he's in the UN type gathering, whatever, and you're like, really?
No, representative.
He is a representative.
But anyway, so he's essentially the highest commander we see on screen, if you will, at present, anyway, with the exception of occasional voice-ins from Herbie Hancock. Weird to say that out loud. And Clive Owen seems to have some sort of secret, because he's got a bunch of dark robot shock troops hanging around him everywhere. We're like, well, he can't be a good guy, but he and his subordinates send out our two leads to go and recover a
small creature that's of great import. It's the last living creature from a particular planet, which everybody insists never existed.
Yes, and if you feed this creature anything, it shits out 100 of whatever.
It's a shit replicator.
Yeah. But an adorable one.
It is.
Yeah. In its way.
If I had something that pooped diamonds, I would love it so much.
Yeah, it would be my favorite, cutest thing in the world. It could look like poop, and I'd still be like, oh, my little poop monster.
Man, you guys are not superficial.
But it turns out this all ties back into that other alien race and cover-ups and yada, yada, yada. And somewhere in there, Rihanna is a shape-shifting, goopy stripper. And Ethan Hawke is a pimp, and Rutger Hauer is president of the World State Federation for 30 seconds.
With an earring.
With an earring.
Yeah,
that's
right.
Every time I laughed at this film, it was not things you were supposed to laugh at. And at first I'm like, okay, this is the same way I was laughing at Fifth Element, casting the guy they did to play the president.
Tiny Lister. Which was a great bit of stunt casting.
That's absurd.
Yeah.
But this was equally absurd. Rutger Hauer, John Goodman voicing
some creature.
Some Jabba the Hutt.
That you thought was going to be important, but wasn't.
His Jabba the Hutt before he put on all that weight.
Yeah.
And it's just a series of really colorful, mixed quality CG sequences and chase scenes.
Yeah, just real quick question. Why 3D?
I could not see anything useful in 3D in this.
No, that's not true, because the opening cards for the production companies...
The production companies look
Those were nice. After though, after a while, I forgot. I was like, oh yeah, I do have my 3D glasses on. It's really not much. From a production standpoint, from a visual effects standpoint, this is a visual feast. It is beautiful to look at times. But again, we have seen a lot of these sort of visual beats before, maybe not executed as well. And I could have forgiven a whole lot of this silliness if I only felt like I cared about the two characters of Valerian and Laureline, who look more like brother and sister than a couple who have had this sort of, it's supposed to be that classic on-again, off-again, love-hate kind of relationship that generates sexual tension, and there's none here.
Yeah, I get the feeling these two actors didn't even like each other, much less have attraction to each other.
Just because every time they kissed, it looked like somebody was like licking the bottom of a wet shoe?
It looked like somebody, like they actually are brother and sister, and mom's like, okay, you two been fighting, now you kiss and you make up.
Well,
my God, corporal punishment was much harsher in your house than mine.
I don't know. There was a point in this film that I just kind of gave up on it because I realized in my head I keep defending this thing, and I started to come to terms with the fact that this is not The Fifth Element. This is The Phantom Menace crossed with Revenge of the Sith. It's like that, where it's nonstop visual stimulation of stuff where they're trying to create a world like you've never seen before, and you're impressed by that at first. But after a while, when you realize that feels like that's all they have. And all the jokes are like, there's a lot of flatulence type jokes and things like that, but no jokes that are funny at all. I tuned out. Now, I know Scott doesn't agree with this.
No, I sense a dissenting opinion in the room.
Well, I actually have the complete opposite. I hated The Fifth Element. I thought it was one of the worst movies ever made.
Okay.
And it was visually kind of dull and bland, and it was stupid, and the plot made no sense. It was a big flaming ball of doom.
Okay.
Great. That was awesome. And then there was no point. I'm like, everyone loved it. I still, to this day, don't get it.
Not everyone loves it, for sure.
No, but a lot of people love it. I don't understand that. Let me clarify this. This was not a good movie. This is a very bad movie.
We're talking about this?
You're talking about Valerian.
Okay.
Valerian is a very bad movie. But it's like Xanadu with sci-fi. And that's
Xanadu is technically sci-fi.
It is, but this is like Xanadu in space. This is fantastic. It does not work on any possible level. And to me, that made it enjoyable to watch.
No, man. If Gene Kelly were in this motherfucker, I'd have been all on board.
And you bring up
Herbie
a good
Hancock
point.
is like the Gene Kelly of the...
You bring up a good point, though. If this thing had a non-stop Electric Light Orchestra soundtrack, I would have liked it a lot better.
And by that, still hated it.
Still not liked it. Yeah.
Sure. But it didn't, again, they hate each other. The dialogue was pretty appalling. The story was, who cares? I've seen Avatar a million times. I was able to look at the guy next to me who was like, I can't believe this is the worst we've ever seen. I don't think that's true.
Yeah, you haven't seen a lot of movies.
Yeah, exactly.
Battlefield Earth, come on.
This isn't even a contender for worst film ever made. It's nowhere close to worst film.
No.
There's a lot of good, talented people working on this to little avail, but you feel like the effort was put in. It's just one of those cases where there is no chemistry between those leads, and because their natural delivery tends to be somewhat flat and monotone, it totally saps it of any of that back and forth type of dialogue that gives these kind of films momentum.
And Dane DeHaan is like this weird fusion of Leonardo DiCaprio and Keanu Reeves and Vincent Kartheiser, and it's really hard to get past.
He's always felt like he's like in Alien Resurrection. He's like the closest to Sigourney Weaver clone in the tank, but something's still off.
He just sounds like he always sounds like he just woke up and he's really confused.
But with Leonardo DiCaprio.
Yeah, but to me, he sounds like a kid who looks like he's 16 years old and is trying really hard to sound old.
Yeah, he's trying like he's an affecting
tough guy. He's like, hey, this worked for Bruce Willis. I'm like, kid, you're not Bruce Willis.
And that wasn't Bruce Willis affecting a voice. That's just how
after that many Seagrams, wine coolers.
Probably an endless
See, but that's what made Fifth Element work for me, or one of the many things, was you had a guy who was, a Bruce Willis, who, let's not forget, at the time was the biggest action star in the world. And you had a rising star in Mila Jovovich, and as quiet and sort of laconic, tough guy as he was, she was this manic, crazy, gibberish spouting weirdo. And yet they were so different. That contrast was interesting. Here, these characters are so similar in their delivery and in their appearance that even visually, there's no chemistry between them.
It's not even really that. The plot never gives these people a chance to build any real character other than everything you know about them in the first 30 seconds they're on screen together.
There are moments where they should be yelling at each other, where there's excitement. Things are happening. Like, what's happening down there? I'm moving towards the planet. It's like, come on, man. Put some energy in this.
If you guys keep going back and forth between Fifth Element and this, I think Fifth Element was made with a sense of fun. Yeah. And this was made with, I want to inspire awe And instead it just inspires,
Yeah, fair enough.
There's so many times where I'm like, all right, this is it. This is when the good part is going to start, because there's so many moments where you're like, okay, this is definitely inventive, the scenarios. Yeah. It's cool. You're showing me types of things that I like in the details that I'm like, oh, I've never seen anything that looks like that before. That's really cool. And then that's all they ever are, is details. The heart of this film just is missing. It's just not there all together.
No, Chris. It's in the other dimension where the fucking bazaar is.
That's right.
Scott's dying over here.
No, I'm good.
You just got to jump in, Scott.
No, it's cool. So, like, Fifth Element, to me, this is the flimsiest of things. The story is stupid. But, to me, the Fifth Element story was so painfully... I couldn't get into it because the story was so bad that it made no sense. So there's a big flaming ball coming because Gary Oldman's character called it on the phone and told to come there, but maybe that's not what it is, and these things can do it. They don't really clarify what it is. They clarify what the story is here. It's a pretty clear story. It's not a great story. It's basically very straightforward. It's been done one time, but at least I could follow it. Fifth Element was just a bunch of things happening, and it looked cool, and then everything was fine. Then all of a sudden, she's passed out, and then she's holding her, and everything explodes.
That worked more for me because that was so much more about the characters and their connections with each other, and the plot was like, we get enough to understand what it's at stake.
Yeah, it was a multipass.
Here, I'm like, I just don't care if anyone in here lives or dies. Neither do the filmmakers.
No.
They make a big point of introducing, I don't want to say who, but they make a big point of doing a big, let's stop the movie for like 5 minutes to introduce this character in a kind of sleazy sequence that you're like, okay. And then instantly they're all best friends, and then like 5 minutes later they're dead, and there's a big, really long, emotional, oh my god, I can't believe they're dead, this person we just met.
See, and to me, that felt like Besson actually copying himself, because I realized, that's the opera scene. That's the equivalent of the opera scene in Fifth Element. Where it's like, let's just have this big show-stopping moment, and you'll be going, why are we watching this? Why does this makes no sense. But it's visually and sonically captivating, and it builds to something, and that character does serve some part of the plot. And it's all in about 5 minutes. Here, they do the same thing with this other character, and it's just... it doesn't pay off.
You can't help but think of that, but at least the opera scene was like a callback to a classic like trope in film, with that idea of the spies moving in and the action happening and flashing back and forth while the opera is happening, which is even happening in a James Bond movie. It happened in a Mission Impossible movie.
Right. And then the opera becomes this whole, electronic music thing, which, again, just at the time, and 20 years ago, hits you with a kind of freshness, because you're like, oh, that's weird, but I've never seen it before.
Here, the only point of it is to say, that character has a specific power that could come in handy to get us to where the next part of the plot
And in case you didn't get it, let's repeat that gag over and over and over.
To flip the same thing, Fifth Element had a very small stage, but the scope was much larger. Here, the stage was huge. You're at this huge, amazing base station, and the scope and the stakes were very, very, not low, but considerably lower, because it's some alien race of blue people we meet for 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden, who cares? I mean, I still enjoyed the movie, but it was kind of... It was a weird flip of great, huge scope, I can speak. Huge stage, low stakes, whereas Fifth Element, they're in a pyramid, and then, they save the universe from a big flaming ball. So
I mean, no, that's perfectly valid. I think that's actually a good way of summing it up. To me, what made that other film work in the way, and any film like this, it's why I like the original Star Wars films a little bit more than the prequels.
A little
bit? No. What I mean is, I'm not going to take the time to go into the whole prequel thing. But why I like those older films is, you know what? Here's a big secret, folks. The original trilogy is flawed as hell.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of stupid shit in those movies, but I love them because I love the characters, and I followed along, and they had a snappy energy to their dialogue. Even when the dialogue was dumb, it was sort of delivered quickly and on the move.
You always knew that why they were doing what they were doing, as opposed to here, where constantly I'm like, I have no idea what's even happening right now.
Fifth Element's stupid. Yes, he calls some intergalactic hotline and calls a huge flaming ball of death. I get it. That's dumb. But meanwhile, you're just watching. Meanwhile, you're just watching. Yeah, oh man, I never pay charges for fun. But it's fun because you're like, I'm watching Gary Oldman channel, Ross Perot, and why is he being so fucking weird? And it's like, technically, this is kind of just terrible, but I can't believe he's doing it.
You said it earlier. He's leaning into it so hard that that's the only thing you can do in a performance in a movie this absurd. Whereas Clive Owen is playing so straight that you're like...
He's boring.
On paper, you're a mustache-twirling villain. To watch your performance, you're the most dull villain I remember seeing in recent memory.
He's really dull.
What really encapsulates everything about this movie is that we've spent very little talking about this movie and talking a lot about movies that worked.
Yeah, true.
I mean, I just don't want to talk about it because you're like, there's so much stuff here that I'm like, yeah, it was a thing. I mean, I wish I still took drugs, because I probably would have liked it.
I wondered, watching it is like, now, I don't know if they still do this for all French films, or because obviously it's a French-made film, but get financing, and this is an extremely expensive movie.
Finance.
Chinese, French, it's like over €250. And so, of course, they go, well, yes, we're going to put it in English, we'll cast American actors. And I'm wondering if Besson's like, I don't care, I'm going to just redub them in French anyway, and they'll sound fine. All they have to do is look good. I don't care. Maybe that's what was going through his mind.
He was less. I mean, if so, then I feel bad for any American producer who ever works with them again. It's like, France is where the big money is. We'll get Gerard Depardieu and I don't know whoever.
He would have been better in this movie because at least he would have done something.
Yeah,
you could have put him in the John Goodman role, and you wouldn't even need to do CG.
Matthew Kassovitz, which is a big actor in France, I'm like, I didn't realize he was in this fucking thing.
He was the market guy.
He should have been the lead fucking guy. He should have been Dane DeHaan's character. I would have believed.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just I don't know. Despite all the color and going on, I kept thinking of, like I said, the prequels. I kept thinking of there was growing up in this show my age, there was this VHSs they used to sell called The Mind's Eye, and there was a whole series of them. And they were at the very beginning of CG, and it was like an hour of nothing but just CG for basically to get stoned to.
Here's some fractal art.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this was like the modern day equivalent of that. I was like, I can't imagine any reason to watch this unless you're just baked off your ass.
So I'm watching this, I'm thinking, in 15 years, I'm going to be watching late night TV, and it's going to come out like 3 in the morning. I'm like, you know what? Right on. This is the kind of movie I want to watch right now because I'm tired, I'm half awake, let's do this. And I'll be excited.
2 hours and 17 minutes, you're going to fall asleep at some point.
Oh, for sure. It'll help.
Well, let's go to final thoughts. Marco, why don't you start us out?
Okay. Well, we've kind of hit a lot of these points already, but it is tragically miscast, which is unfortunate because it is a visually ravishing film. But as has been noted, a lot of this stuff, we've had 50 years of this material, so a lot of it has been recycled and seen already. Unfortunately, Valerian's not going to be viewed as original because everybody's already ripped it off. They just didn't realize where it was being ripped off from. It was. I really wanted to love this, but, I didn't hate it, but I am not crazy about it. I give this 4 pearls from freshly squeezed from the anus of a strange intergalactic creature.
And Jeff?
I mean...
He's so... Just looking at you, just like, what do I... No, it's just... I don't...
I would have to be invested to get mad at how much of a disappointment this was to anybody who is going to go out and pay money to see this.
Yeah.
I don't care if the comic came first. It's not original. Alien habitats where they live by the sea and they're basically SpongeBob SquarePants living in a giant conch shell. Not imaginative. So yeah, I just give it a pass. It's a solid 3 weak eyebrows for me.
Fair enough. And Scott?
So to me, it's my favorite kind of movie. It's an utter misfire, just because utter misfire totally works. Like Southland Tales or a bunch of movies you can think of that are completely awful. Yet I'm like, I can't stop watching this. This is amazing. It's the kind of thing I'll find myself probably watching again. Is it a good movie? No. Is it well made? Yes. Is it poorly casted? Absolutely. Dialogue is terrible. Luc Besson should stop writing screenplays as soon as humanly possible. But that being said, I'll give it I'll watch that again.
Fair enough. Yeah. So you're a cinematic train wreck rubbernecker.
Oh, absolutely.
That's what you are. Okay. I just ultimately, I think a film I started out with a lot of hope for, And it just lost me to the point where I just didn't even care anymore. Sure enough, like, I know a lot of people like to bitch the most about The Fifth Element with the whole, the fifth element is love, spoiler. Well, that irritated you? Just wait till you get to the scene in this movie where they get into the whole love speech. Because, oh my God, people in the audience were like audibly like groaning out loud. And there was actually, my favorite moment of this whole movie is, of all the misfire jokes, which is to say every joke in the movie, the movie will just stop and go, ah? And one of these moments when they're there's an obvious pause for laughter in the movie, there's total silence, someone just goes, it's just right out of like The Simpsons or something. I was like, okay, that was funny. But yeah, it's a mess. I can't defend it. I would love to, but I can't. If you're one of those people who loves this, because there are some people out there who I read online who are like defending the shit out of it, and I'm like, hey man, more power to you. That's 2 hours and 17 minutes. You're not jealous that you'll never get back. For me, I probably won't ever watch this again. I give this 2 out of 10 alien goo bukkake face scenes to Laureline. Because, boy, she got splattered in the face with alien goo like 6 times in this.
Yeah, mouth open most of the time.
Yeah, and there's so many moments in this movie that are like... Did I already say it? This movie felt like if George Lucas had made the prequels, it was your creepy, like, manonist uncle who wrote it instead. Mm-hmm. There's so many moments like this where you're like... On one level, it feels like you're selling this to kids... Then you keep doing super creepy sex stuff.
We didn't even talk about the creepiest thing with the weird race of aliens with the mentally challenged woman who kept giving her clothes to put on. And
yeah.
That was...
Oh, yeah, or how Laureline 1 second was a badass, and then next she was just a helpless damsel in distress.
Although I appreciated that hat gag, which oddly enough is a callback, again, to Fifth Element, where one character literally says, nice hat. Which is exactly what Bruce Willis tells to the guy with the weird hat who tries to rob him.
Yeah,
nice hat. It's like, so Besson likes his hat jokes. I'll give him that.
Not enough. This whole movie was old hat.
Oh.
See what I did there?
Oneofus.net has been your one-stop shop for all things geek for years. But there's a side to them many of you have never heard. The subscription side. Subscribe and listen to great podcasts like The Breakfast Pub, The Original Gentleman, and the Watch a Movie With Us series. Head on over to Oneofus.net and don't forget your towel.